Today we're taking a look at the Smittybilt Overland rooftop tent. This is the smaller version, not the XL. We actually decided to downsize to this one from the XL. Reason being is it's just me and my wife and our dog when we go camping. We don't have any kids, so if you do have kids, I would recommend getting the XL version. Plus, we spent a lot of money on this roof rack, and the XL took up the entire roof rack. So we felt like we were missing out on some of the opportunities to use our roof rack. This gave us about 2 feet on the back side of our roof rack. We decided to do it that way since we have a ladder. We can get to our things back here versus putting our things up front, making it difficult to get to them. I will say that the XL version was a lot heavier than this version, and that's because it was 2 feet longer. It did give you a lot of space up inside, but that wasn't a big issue for me and just my wife. So another reason we transitioned from the XL to the regular Overlander is because in the instructions it does say in the XL version that you have to have at least 3 crossbar supports, whereas we only bought 2, and buying another one just wasn't worth the money. I've seen a lot of people put the Overlander XL on their cars with only 2 crossbars, and that's how we had it for a little bit, and it didn't feel too unstable, but we tried to spread out the bars as best we could to distribute the weight, but you still felt like there was a lot of unsupported weight in the middle. So rather than buying another crossbar, we decided to sell it locally, and then we purchased the Smittybilt Overlander. So in this video, I'm gonna show you an unboxing of this tent. I'm gonna show you how to put the rails and the ladder on, and then I'm also gonna go over how to open it, how to close it, and then how to pack it up nice and tight. So this is how big it is. I'll show a picture of what this looks like compared to the XL version. I still had the box before I got rid of it. But let's open this up and see what's inside. This version has 2 straps on the sides and then 2 straps on that side that wrap around underneath and then strap to this side. So technically there's going to be 6 sets of straps that you're going to need to take off. So technically we open this up in reverse. Normally the side with the holes are where your tent is going to be sitting on top of your roof rack or crossbars. We just need to get it open so we can get the hardware out, so we can get those bars on and as well as the ladder. There's a door on both sides, and I believe all the windows open up completely as well. So they all have this mesh, but they all open up completely as well, which is kind of nice if you need to get something through a window or just want the fresh air and don't mind the bugs. Once you get everything out from inside, there's going to be a few things to look for. These are going to be kind of the stakes or the props that you use to keep your window flaps open. I'll show you how to use those later. Then there's these 2 bags which both have different things in them. I believe this one is the hardware. So all your nuts and bolts, all of your mounting equipment, they throw in a wrench that you can do the whole job with, but it's definitely going to be easier if you have a socket wrench, even a drill maybe. You're going to end up using all of this to get this onto your roof rack or crossbars. In the other bag, they usually put a lot of electronic stuff in here, which is kind of nice. And I don't end up using these bags for what they gave them to us for. So it's kind of nice to have these extra bags to throw things in. This is for your rain fly. You can put these on the outside and strap it down so it stays taut. They also give you the cigarette lighter extender, so you can plug this into your cigarette lighter and string it all the way up into your car. To go along with that, which is actually super nice, we use this in the XL and it is super bright, is this Velcro LED strip. You plug this in via USB and then it seriously lights up the whole tent. It's almost too bright. They also throw in a USB adapter that goes into your cigarette lighter. So you get that extension cord all the way up there, you plug this in and then you can plug your light in or your phone. And then the last thing they throw in there is a super long USB extender. So it's just a regular USB male to USB female. And then they throw in the instructions. Also inside of the tent, you're gonna find your ladder. This. You're gonna find your rails that you will be mounting to the bottom of the tent. This is what's gonna sit on top of your roof rack or crossbars. They throw this in, which is super nice. We actually use this on the XL version. This is a shoe bag. There is a place for you to hang this up. And then if you get into your tent, you don't have to get your dirty shoes up into your tent. You just throw your shoes in here and get inside. And the last thing they throw in is the cover, which is pretty heavy duty. There's been a lot of controversy about the covers that Smittybilt puts out because they are all Velcro. I will say on the XL version that we had, it was pretty terrible getting these things on because you're trying to get everything nice and tight. But while you're doing that, there's Velcro's catching on another side that you don't want it to touch yet. So it's kind of a hassle, but it didn't budge when we were on the road. I mean, we drove on the freeway for hours and it was totally fine. So I've also heard some people say that they were a little worried about the durability of the Velcro, but it seems to last a really long time based upon what other people say. All right, I'm gonna swivel this thing around and I'm gonna fold it back up so that we can get the rails and the ladder on. And that way you can get a better look at what I'm doing here. All right, so this is the side we're gonna be working on where we're putting our rails. You can see that there's two holes drilled across from each other. I believe you can mount the rails on any way that you like. I think they can go on this way or that way, but you do have to do some trimming, obviously, if you do it that way, just in case you want the door to open up off the back of your vehicle versus the side. We're gonna be putting this on our 4Runner, so we want it to open up on the side of the vehicle, so we're just gonna go ahead and put them on like normal. One thing to keep in mind while you do this, and I noticed this on the last time that we built up our XL, is that there are these caps on the end of these rails. These are important because you have to take these off to put in the sliders so that you can get them onto your roof rack. I would just take these off right away so that you know you have all of them because they fall off pretty easy. I don't imagine that we're gonna see these very long. I can imagine them falling off pretty easily on the road. So I would just take them off right away so that you don't lose them. One thing to take note of is the hardware that they send you. They're gonna send you 8 6mm bolts and 8 8mm bolts. You're gonna use 4 6mm bolts to put on your rails, and you're gonna use 4 6mm bolts for the ladder, and then the 8mm bolts you'll be using to attach to your roof rack or crossbars. It's important to find the difference between the 2 6mm bolts. You have 4 that have 2 small washers. These will be used for your ladder. And you have 4 that have a larger washer, and that's gonna be used for your rails. So to get the rails on, you're gonna have to tip up the tent a little bit, maybe open up a window on the side and reach in with your hand and feel for these holes that are underneath the mattress. You're gonna take the bolt and the washer and feed that through that side and then in through the rail. And then there's a little channel in the rail where you'll be sliding the locking nut and basically just tightens down. All right, so I've got the window open up on the side. So now you just have to reach underneath the mattress, push the bolt and washer through one of the holes on the back side. There it is. Okay, so the way this works is you have your channel here and your bolt is gonna go right in that slot. In order to get the nut on, you do have to find this center channel. It's the small channel right here, and put your nut in there. Make sure it's facing the right way. And just kind of feed it down. Mine just kind of slid down all the way, and get it right over the top of that hole. Once you do that, you can use the bolt to center it up and get it tightened down. So these 6mm bolts take a 10mm wrench to tighten up. The inner channel is so close together that you don't need anything to hold that nut tight. The channel will do that itself. So all you have to worry about is tightening from underneath the mattress. So I'm just screwing on the bolt. So just a word of warning, I wouldn't tighten this nut completely because you might have a hard time getting the other one on. So I've just left this one somewhat tight so that way I can get that other last bolt on and then I can change it later if I need to. Okay, we're gonna do the opposite side now. Start by putting the nut down the center channel. I'm actually gonna use my bolt to get it right where it needs to go, which is over the hole. And then we'll tighten it up. And I wouldn't do these extremely tight. I don't think you want to crush whatever this is made out of, but tight enough to where you feel like it's not gonna come flying off on the highway. Make sure that these straps aren't underneath when you tighten it down. Also, these steps are probably a lot easier with the help of another person. So just to give you an idea of how this attaches to your rail system, you're gonna have the larger bolts as well as these slide plates. You're gonna put the bolt in so that it rests within those slots. And then you'll flip it upside down and then you'll be putting it into these small channels. First time I did this, I accidentally wasn't paying attention because it was up on my rack and I couldn't see, and I put it in through the large channel. And then I had issues obviously with it sliding around. So make sure that you get these edges into these small channels and you'll feed it all the way down so that one of these is on one side of your bar, the other one's on the other side, and then you'll use a clamp so that you can compress it all together. So once you get your rails on, we're gonna flip the entire thing over so we can put the ladder on next. I will say one con of this whole build are these corners here. For some reason, they left these without any sort of protective plastic like they do on the other corners. And when you put the cover on, the cover really likes to grab hold of these, and I can imagine them puncturing the cover in the future. So hopefully that's something that Smittybilt's looking into and getting resolved. The other side's great. It's a plastic cover and there's no sharp edges. So putting the ladder on is pretty straightforward. You're gonna wanna make sure that the side with these adjuster knobs is on top. This is the way that you're gonna be able to adjust what level the ladder height is at. These are the brackets that are going to mount the brackets you're going to attach here. And the brackets look like this. Now hopefully there's not too much confusion on how these go on. You want the arrow side facing down. And then it's pretty straightforward. You grab your other 6mm bolts. These are the ones with 2 washers. You're gonna leave 1 washer on the bolt end and then add another washer to the nut end. You're gonna wanna make sure that the door is open on this side because you are gonna have to reach in and find the hole so that you can feed the bolt through. Once you have the door open on this side, it's gonna be pretty obvious where these holes are. This is the reason why they send you 2 wrenches, because you'll need a 10 on this side and a 10 on the underside to tighten this down. Another thing to note when putting these together, I've seen a lot of other tutorials online about this, and you would think that the ladder would go either on the inside or the outside, but that isn't the case. It favors one side. So if you put a bracket on going this way, you're gonna wanna make sure the bracket goes this way too. And what I mean by that is that the hardware is coming off this side. So the ladder will attach on both left sides here. So before I tighten this one up completely, I just wanted to make sure that the ladder will fit. I don't want them to be too tight and maybe be a little crooked and not be able to get it to fit, so it might be a good idea to do that as well. Now the instructions aren't super clear on what goes where after you put the ladder onto these bolts. I have done some research online and seen some people talk about how these are supposed to go on, and this is what I'm sticking with. So you have a washer here, you add your 2 spacers, then your ladder. I'm gonna do this side as well. 2 spacers. And then I'm gonna add another washer and then the nut. Before I tighten those down, I'm gonna make sure I get this plate completely tight. And another reason they give you 2 wrenches is to tighten these up as well. They're both 10 millimeter. All right, so these aren't as tight as I can go. They are very tight, but not extremely tight. I believe that's why these spaces are in here together, is so that they can rub on each other and still allow the ladder to come free. But obviously you will still want to tighten them somewhat because you don't want these falling off somewhere down the road. All right, before you throw this on your car, I would highly recommend bagging it all up, strapping it all down. It's gonna make it a lot easier to move it to get it onto the roof rack or your crossbars. There is this strap here for your ladder. I usually just throw it around the bottom bar. It doesn't lock up top because in order to unfold this, you need to get some leverage from the ladder. So you'll end up pulling this until it does lock into place. At that point, you can angle it down, get some leverage, and unfold your tent. So in order to keep your ladder secure when it's on top of the car, you just throw this over the bottom. Got your 2 D-ring strap here. You just tighten it down. And it'll still move, but it's not going anywhere, especially with the cover on, it's not gonna go anywhere. And then for the other straps, there on the other side, you just pull them down to the other D-rings on that side and tighten it up. If you're wondering what these red straps are flopping around, these are actually straps that go on the inside of the tent that help you get in. They have a little loop here. So if you have a hard time climbing in, you can yank on these to give yourself a hand. They just kind of sometimes flop out of the tent. Super easy to put back down into the mattress, which is right here. So all that's left to do is to get this thing up on the roof rack. I'll show you how to get it up there and how to make sure it's nice and secure so it's not gonna fly off on you while you're on the freeway. We'll also take a look at the setup and takedown process. So let's go get this on the car. All right, so I've got my wife here to help me get this up on the roof. It's really simple. Our roof rack has these crossbars that we had to buy separately. I don't know what kind of system you're using, but we went and measured the bottom of the rooftop tent and made sure that we're getting 10 inches of overlap here and 10 inches of overlap here. So should be a nice fit. So this is where these bigger bolts come into play. You're going to put this through this slide plate. And remember that the nut goes through these grooves right here so that it holds it in place. Up here on the tent, got our channel right here. Our rail here, we're gonna be sliding the slide plate through the smaller grooves on the bottom. Once it comes up to here, what I like to do, and I don't know if your system will allow you to do this, you might need some help, but I have these little lips right here that allow me to push and tilt my tent up so I can get that bolt around. And I'm just gonna push it onto the other side of my crossbar. And then I'm gonna do another one and leave it on the opposite side. All right, if you saved your little black caps from before, you can go ahead and slide these onto the rails. I know we haven't tightened it down yet, but we won't be sliding anything onto those rails anymore, so we might as well just cap them off. So before you tighten down the hardware, you're going to want to make sure that the rooftop tent is centered the way that you want it. To tighten to your roof rack or crossbars, there are these plates that you'll be using. There's 2 holes. I think it's just a preference. I believe crossbars, standard crossbars, are a little bit wider, so you'd probably use the wider holes. I think we'll probably be using the holes closer to the center on this one, because our crossbar system on here isn't too big. I would recommend using a socket wrench, probably a deep socket, because these threads are pretty long. This is going to help speed things up quite a bit. You're going to slide these onto the 2 bolts, then a washer, and then the nut. Keep in mind that these bolts take a 13mm socket or wrench, and what I normally do is I try to keep it as centered as possible on the crossbar, and then I do them all the way up until those brackets just start to bend. You don't want them to bend too much, because then they will start stripping your bolts. So just enough to hold it snug. All right, that's it. So we decided to put the door and ladder on the driver's side. Last time we did it on the passenger side. It really doesn't matter to me which side it goes on, just a personal preference to you, I guess. Let's unfold it, get the whole thing set up, and show you how to do that and see what it looks like on the inside. So remember that these straps go over the top. I just undid those straps on that side so we can pull those free. And we also have the ladder strapped down. So you just pull this till it clicks. Give it some leverage. And then just walk away with it. Then you're going to want to make sure that your ladder is at a good angle to support the weight on this side. So then you have these props that you can use to hold your window flaps open. They're super easy to install. At the bottom of the metal frame, there are these holes right here that these will go into. You can pull this flap over and there's actually a little pocket. You just stick the end of the rod in there so it locks into place. I typically like to go this route first and then loop the hole. It just seems easier that way. And pull it tight, just like that. All right, that's pretty much it. Let's take a look at what it looks like on the inside. All right, so I'm just gonna walk up with the camera and show you what it looks like on the inside after my wife wipes off the doo-doo that she took in there.
I'm sorry. I didn't know I had poo-poo on my shoe.
All right, so this is what it looks like on the inside. You got 2 windows on the side. There are also 2 windows in the ceiling. You could completely roll up your rain tarp if you're not worried about rain, and then you could open those up and do some stargazing. These are the straps that I was talking about earlier. You can grab a hold of these and pull yourself up if you have a hard time getting up. You also have a vent up there and a vent right there. This strip here, this Velcro strip, this is for your light bar, which looks like this. The whole backing is Velcro, so it sticks really easily. And I just leave this up here. I don't worry about taking that down ever again. But yeah, it's like a really good fit, at least for 2 people. In the XL, it felt like you could maybe get 3 adults side by side, probably 2 kids at the bottom. We just have me and my wife and a dog, so it's gonna be easy for us to sleep side by side, put our dog at our feet. And then still a lot of room down there by our feet, which is nice. And I'm a tall guy, I'm 6'2", so I don't have any issues with the length of this tent. So I have heard some mixed things about this mattress. Some people love it, some people hate it. I will agree that it is a little bit stiff. I know some people have gone out and bought a 2-inch memory foam topper, and they say that that has solved a lot of their issues as far as sleeping goes. They also say that they leave the topper in here while they fold it up, and it still folds up just the way it's supposed to. We only spent 2 nights on the XL version, and I honestly didn't mind it, but we'll see how the future plays out. So let's go outside and I'll show you how to take this all down and how to put the cover on. So packing it up is pretty much the same as setting it up, just in reverse. I typically leave the doors open so that you can throw all the excess material in the door. It's gonna help especially once you get it folded in. Anything you take off the tent, you might as well just put back in their bags and then throw it in the tent so you don't lose it. With the XL, there was a couple other bars because there was a bigger opening here so you could throw the annex on, and those you would have a separate bag for that you would also throw in the tent when you were done taking it down. And this is how easy it is to fold it back up. You just pull these plugs out and twist them a little bit, and then you push it over. Just like that. You're gonna throw these straps back over to the opposite side so you can strap it down. I'm gonna strap down the ladder really quick. And then you'll wanna walk around the perimeter of the tent, stuffing everything into the edges and then using those straps to secure it. One thing I would warn is they do have those double D-rings where you're supposed to go through both and then back through the middle of them. We found that if you do that, it is extremely hard to get them back off later. So yeah, it does its job, but it's gonna make it so much harder to open up your tent later on. So we usually just go through both and then just Velcro it down. So I did forget to mention the shoe holder. This, like I said, this thing is awesome. There are some D-rings that hang just outside of your front door. You throw these Velcro straps through and it just hangs there like this. And on your way up the ladder, you can take your shoes off, dump them in here, and then they're not in your tent. Now we're gonna throw on the cover. It is gonna be helpful to have another person. I think I'm gonna try and put the corners on the sharp edges first so that I'm not tugging on them later on. That's pretty good. And then you just smooth down the edges on top of the Velcro strip that's on the bottom. What's worked best for us in the past is to try and work all of the excess material towards these straps here. So that way when you get to them, you can really close it off nicely. All right, and that's it.